Well, hello and welcome to BJAToday. I am BJ. If you hear a little rumble in the background, some applause or boom, it's because I'm live at ICFF, and boom might happen in any film. But to get us in the right position to understand what happens in this industry called filmmaking, you got to talk to the experts, the ones who know from the front of the camera to the back of the camera to the left or the right, doesn't matter. You've got to speak to the experts.
Team 11, take 2, 8 mark. All right, we're hot, fire in the hole, and action!
And the expert is with me right now. Joth Riggs, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, BJ.
It's funny to me that, you know, I looked at your background and I met you in 2013 with my husband on a film called Adrenaline.
Yeah.
And from this day to now, I did not realize how incredibly vast your background is. You have a IMDb that looks like someone twice your age, first of all, and that you have never, ever stopped.
Yeah, right. Workaholic.
So, which is a good thing. But tell us what makes this man tick. What makes you work like that in this field?
Well, bottom line is passion about storytelling in particular. I started doing it in high school with my buddies, and I'm like, man, this is fun. I really like this. And so I went to film school and got into it early, and I'm like, I can actually make a living doing this? This is fantastic. And you know, the other great thing about filmmaking is that it varies. I mean, I might be on a pirate ship one week and a spaceship the next, you know, so it's...
And you actually did that.
And I have actually done pirate movies and space movies.
I recognize. But what is interesting to me is that when you chose to move to a storytelling that is more family-centric and faith-based, your stories still have this that I like. It still has grit.
Yeah.
In effect until national weather.
Its way through the Jasper County.
It's funny what your mind drifts to when you're faced with death.
Go!
People say your life flashes before your eyes. But what they don't tell you is that it's not always good.
It still has so much truth, but in a way that the church is not necessarily accustomed to.
Yeah, right. I started with the big budget Hollywood studio films, and you know, there's a bit of a detachment there. It's a big machine.
Yes.
And yeah, I wanted to have more influence over the product that I was putting out there. I have a family. I have 2 girls, and I mean, they're older now, but you know.
Back then.
Yeah, back then. I'm like, I want to do stuff that my family can be proud of, you know, values that reflect my own. And so I shifted into indie films, smaller indie films, and a lot of them faith-based. And yeah, I mean, the stories have a whole different meaning. But you're right in terms of, a little bit of this, because I'm really a storyteller at heart. And so, you know, to just have sort of just values is not enough. You have to actually have a good story.
Yeah.
You know, so I wanted stuff that's like, oh, that's really interesting. I want to be part of that.
You know, really interesting, a story that has value is so important.
Yeah.
The industry as a whole has changed, whether it be faith-based or not. And one of the big changes that occurred just before COVID was everybody started looking at their programs on this little tiny thing called our cell phones.
Yeah.
And then of course it's the iPad and this and the computer. How has that shifted what you want to do as a storyteller? Because what the story is being told on is something tiny.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line ultimately is to make sure that your stuff gets out there. So you have to look at your audience first. You know, what does the audience want? The audience wants shorter, quicker stuff like that. Yeah. So you have to find the stories that they want to watch. You know, and so then you kind of cater to that. But we're certainly more into streaming, and so you know, you have to find more intimate stories, more character-driven stories. And stuff that, I mean, I'm not a Disney, so right? So I'm not doing big Marvel action films.
Right.
So I really have to cater to that connection with a character you care about.
The character that you care about. That's the story that we want to hear about.
I would only forgive him when he brought our family back together. How's that working for you?
I've been asking for forgiveness for a very long time. Emily. And I've had to grieve alone by myself for all these years. Isn't that sacrifice enough?
But when we get there, it's you, the director, that makes the story happen. There's got to be this incredible marriage between the actor, the director, the cinematographers, the production. It is a dance.
Yeah.
What makes the dance work for you?
Well, what you have to, each person has their own thread. Your actor has their motivation, your cinematographer has his, but you need an overall vision. So it's cohesive, because anything that pulls the audience out of the story means they're lost, right? They're going to step away. You have to keep them engaged, and in order to keep them engaged, you have to have a very compelling, cohesive story. So you have to tell your actors, here's the context of your story and your character. So play that in relation to this character. And your cinematographer, I want you to light the scene and move the camera in a way that works with the story and with the characters. They're not two different things moving at the same time. They should be working in harmony so that your audience is completely engrossed and they can't take their eyes off of it.
And it makes it interesting when all of that harmony, to use your words, is actually working together. It's cohesive, it's speaking. As I hear in the background voices of the actors, music, sounds that boom in the night, how would you say the parts that people don't see in the top of their mind would influence the film? The things that we don't see in the top of our mind are the sounds.
Yeah.
Are the colors in the background.
Absolutely.
Are the textural things that we don't really see in the forefront of our mind, but it affects us.
Absolutely. I mean, I use an example with my wife when we're watching, and we'll see a car driving down the street, and you'll hear a dog barking. And I'm like, that dog just didn't happen randomly. That was inserted by the sound mixer in post-production, and it makes you feel like you're engulfed in that neighborhood. So it's little subtleties that, again, help draw the audience into the story.
You are such an incredible talent within yourself. I'm going to push the producer aside and say, as a director, you have really stepped into a place that is very specially yours. How can people just get a part of what has been your life's work from high school to now?
Oh, that's funny you say that, because I actually just launched an online directing course where I teach directing from start to finish. And one difference with my course is that generally when you see people talk about directing, they usually don't have a lot of time and they kind of broad stroke it, sort of gloss over it. And my course is nuts and bolts. It's what do you do when you show up on set the first day? What's the first thing you do? What's the second thing you do?
Yeah.
What's the third thing you do?
And I was going to ask you about that, but I'm not going to do that because you need to go to the course.
Yeah, directingyourmovie.com.
Directingyourmovie.com.
Yeah, and I talk you through it step by step to leave no guesswork, because it's a big machine with a lot of moving parts, and the director is the one who pulls it all together and makes it something that people want to watch.
And you do the type of product that makes us want to watch.
I try.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much,
It's
BJ.
a pleasure. It's a pleasure to see you again, and a pleasure to get the nuts and bolts. Almost. I'll have to go to the website to get the rest. See you soon.